Why do the most loyal people become the easiest to leave behind? You think being available makes you valuable, but the truth? It makes you predictable. You reply fast. You explain often. You show your heart, hoping they'll protect it. But every detail becomes data. Every emotion becomes leverage. Machiavelli didn't say, be honest. He said, be unreadable. Obsession isn't born from closeness. It's born from confusion, mystery, distance. In this video, I'll show you 6 Machiavellian laws to flip the power dynamic without saying a word. If your kindness has ever made you invisible, this isn't just a video, it's a weapon. Stay until the end. 1. The obsession law. Most people think they're being ignored because they're not good enough, but the truth is much colder. They're being ignored because they're too available. Nathan, a 32-year-old tech consultant in Singapore, was always the dependable one. He'd answer messages within minutes, offer weekend help without being asked, and never made anyone wait. His team liked him, his clients praised him, his manager said he was solid. And yet, when the big leadership opportunity opened up, Nathan wasn't even considered. Not because he was unqualified, but because he was too accessible, too easy to reach, too easy to predict. He found out during lunch. His colleague, less experienced but mysteriously detached, got the promotion. No one said it aloud, but Nathan heard enough. He's always around. Nathan will understand. That sentence didn't sting, it silenced. He sat at the table, holding his fork, unable to taste anything. That was the moment he realized being everywhere made him invisible. The more of himself he gave away, the less people valued it. That night, he rewrote his rhythm. Messages went unanswered, meetings skipped, updates delayed. When he did speak, it was brief, precise. No more small talk, no more over-explaining. And it worked. Clients followed up twice. Colleagues paused before interrupting. Even his manager started asking for his time politely. Machiavelli once wrote that the appearance of mystery builds more power than truth. Obsession isn't born from closeness, it's born from distance. You don't need to vanish, you just need to stop being easy. Mystery is not a wall, it's a filter. It doesn't keep people out, it makes the right ones lean in. So here's the question: if silence creates curiosity, what does over-availability create? In 30 seconds, you'll see how scarcity isn't just strategy, it's survival in a world that forgets the predictable. He used to think availability meant loyalty, but each instant reply only made him disposable. The more he shared, the faster they looked away. He thought he was building trust, but he was just removing all the mystery that made him worth chasing. He didn't change who he was, he just changed how available he made himself. He spoke less, appeared less, revealed less, and suddenly he became valuable again. Because value isn't declared, it's felt through absence. Try this. Don't reply immediately. Don't explain yourself. Don't attend that one meeting this week. Let people feel the cost of your silence, because the first step to being unforgettable is becoming rare. Which one hit you the hardest and why? Drop the number below, the one that felt like it was written for you. But if you want to go further, if you want to make them not just notice your absence but obsess over it, then what comes next is the key. Next, we uncover the silent game of psychological positioning. How the stories people build about you are often more powerful than anything you could say yourself. Skipping that part, that would mean walking away from the exact strategy that turns confusion into control. 2. Psychological positioning. Respect doesn't come from what you say, it comes from the tension people feel when you stop saying it. Liam, 38, was a senior strategist at a marketing firm in Dublin. Sharp mind, clean suits, always had the right words. He believed in clarity, in giving context, in making sure no one misunderstood his intentions. He spoke early in every meeting, followed up every pitch with a detailed breakdown. He believed clarity built trust, and for a while it worked. Clients praised his transparency. His team saw him as dependable, but they stopped leaning in. They stopped wondering what he'd say next. because they already knew. It wasn't betrayal, it was erosion. One day, he offered an idea during a campaign brainstorm. The room was quiet. Then another strategist repeated a simplified version, and everyone nodded. Liam didn't argue, he didn't flinch, but his eyes stopped moving, his mind stilled. In that moment, he realized something brutal. His voice didn't carry weight anymore, it carried clarity. And that wasn't power, that was exposure. That night, he changed. No announcement, no overthinking, just silence. The next meeting he spoke last, then later, then not at all. When asked a question, he answered briefly. He left tension behind each sentence, like a shadow no one could follow, and slowly the air around him shifted. People began watching him, not because they were curious what he'd say, but because they didn't know if he would say anything at all. Machiavelli believed power lies not in explanation, but in distance. When people can't read you, they create stories, they build myths. They overthink silence, replay your words, obsess over what you might be planning. The imagination becomes your ally, and you become their mystery. Do you disagree with any of these? Challenge it below. With logic, we read everything. So what if silence isn't avoidance? What if it's design? In the next 30 seconds, you'll see why mystery doesn't push people away. It pulls them into a narrative you no longer have to write. He used to believe that being detailed built loyalty, that offering explanations earned respect. But every word he gave away removed one thread of uncertainty, and with it one thread of power. The more they understood, the less they listened. The more they could explain him, the less they needed to remember him. He didn't need to change who he was. He just had to stop filling every space with answers. Speak one sentence less, arrive 5 minutes later, let one idea go unexplained. Don't correct the story they tell about you, watch how it grows without your help. You'll notice people leaning in, not to hear better, but to decode what you haven't said. That's when they stop listening to respond and start listening to interpret. But if you want people to not just notice your silence, but crave to break it, what's coming next is the key. Next, we step into the power of absence, and how disappearing at the right moment becomes the ultimate move of dominance. Ignore it, and you'll keep being heard, but never truly felt. 3. The power of absence. Most people believe consistency earns trust, but in power games, consistency earns invisibility. Carlos was a 38-year-old creative director at a growing agency in Lisbon. Brilliant, reliable, always present. His philosophy was simple: show up, stay helpful, never miss a beat. He responded to every message within minutes, stayed late, gave feedback when others were silent. People liked him. But like is cheap in rooms where status decides everything. At first, they praised him. Carlos is dependable. Carlos always delivers. But slowly something shifted. His ideas weren't challenged anymore because they weren't heard. He was consulted last, if at all. Meetings started without him. His camera was always on, his calendar always full, but his presence started fading. The moment he realized something was off, a client mentioned an important pitch, one he had prepared, but no one credited him. His boss said, "We assumed Carlos would support anyway." That phrase stuck. He wasn't respected, he was assumed. That night, Carlos didn't get angry. He got quiet, not passive, strategic. The next morning, he cancelled non-essential calls, waited hours before replying, declined one brainstorming invite with no reason, and something strange happened. People noticed. "Everything okay? We really missed your input." Suddenly, the same colleagues who overlooked him began looping him in faster, just to be safe. In 2 weeks, Carlos said less, but meant more. Because power doesn't knock louder, it becomes harder to reach. Machiavelli understood this. Presence without boundaries becomes background noise. But strategic absence? That's tension. That's currency. When you withdraw without warning, no drama, no excuse, you burn yourself into memory. Like the silence after a gunshot, like the empty chair in a room that used to feel full. You haven't disappeared. You've become an uncertainty they can't afford to ignore. Which one of these cost you the most, personally? Drop a one-line story below. No names, just truth. What comes next isn't noise. It's the move that makes them addicted to your absence. He thought visibility brought influence, but every reply, every gesture just made his presence easier to predict and easier to dismiss. They stopped listening not because he lacked value, but because he gave it too freely. And when he finally pulled back, their curiosity returned. Not because he shouted, but because they had to wonder where he went. Power isn't proven by being loud. It's felt when others lower their voice in your absence. So pause. Cancel one meeting this week. Don't explain. Delay a reply. Let the silence speak instead of you. Watch how people shift. You'll feel the discomfort in their tone, not because you did something wrong, but because they've lost access. That's when your time becomes a luxury. But if you want that discomfort to evolve into obsession, if you want to train them to respect you before they even see you, what comes next will show you how. Up next, the mystery shield, how strategic silence doesn't just protect your power, it multiplies it. Skip it, and you'll keep being seen, but never remembered. 4. The mystery shield. The more they understand you, the less they respect you. Nathan, a 35-year-old senior product manager in Singapore, had always believed in transparency. He'd been taught that good leadership meant clear communication, stating your reasons, walking people through your decisions, and making sure everyone felt included. So he explained, he clarified, he replied with bullet points. Every move he made came with context. Every absence came with apology. Every delay came with justification. But slowly, his clarity started backfiring. His team began second-guessing him. Why not do it this way? Have you thought of that? People weren't aligned. They were emboldened. The more Nathan shared his logic, the more they picked it apart. In one performance review, his director said, "You're good, but you seem to seek validation too often." That night, he sat in silence, replaying the sentence in his head, not angry, just empty. For the first time, he realized maybe he wasn't being respected. Maybe he was being managed. The next day, he didn't over-explain. He made a call, a firm one, no footnotes, no softening, and the room went quiet. No questions, just compliance. Not because they agreed, because they weren't sure how far they could push. That's when he discovered something deeper. Silence creates distance, and distance creates doubt, but not all doubt is weakness. Some of it becomes leverage. Machiavelli once wrote that a prince should never reveal the full cause behind his decisions. Why? Because reasons invite debate. Silence, on the other hand, builds mystery. And mystery builds caution. You're no longer just a leader. They see something in you they can't read, can't challenge, can't predict. You become a presence, not a participant. Up next, how mystery bends perception and how to weaponize it without saying a word. He thought explanation earned trust, but each sentence gave away power. Each clarification made his intentions smaller. What he thought was transparency was really self-erasure. And when he finally stopped speaking, they started listening, not out of respect for his words, but out of fear of what he might not say. Conviction doesn't need translation. It creates silence around it, and that silence becomes gravity. So try this. Don't explain your next decision. Don't justify the delay. Let it sit. Let it breathe. Watch how people lean in, not to understand you, but to make sense of your silence. That tension? That's control without force. That's presence without performance. Which strategy do you wish your younger self had known? Comment it like you're writing to someone still stuck in the old cycle. But if you want to turn that tension into strategic influence, if you want to be seen as unreadable, not just unavailable, what's coming next will shift everything. Next, emotional scarcity, where silence isn't defense, it becomes dominance. Skip it and you'll keep being understood. but never unforgettable. 5. Emotional scarcity. The less emotion you show, the more power you gain over theirs. Liam was a sharp 32-year-old consultant in Melbourne. Fast-paced job, fast-growing reputation, but slow to see the game he was losing. He thought being emotionally open made him a stronger man. He gave honest reactions, he showed joy when things went well, he showed frustration when deadlines slipped. He wore his heart on his sleeve, thinking it proved authenticity. But one afternoon in a leadership workshop, things cracked. After an intense debate over a client pitch, he raised his voice. Not to insult, but to stand his ground. He thought his passion would inspire respect. Instead, a colleague leaned in and whispered, "You care too much. That's why they can push you." The words didn't sting at first, but on the train home, something inside him quieted. Not out of shame, but realization. He wasn't being respected, he was being read, and worse, he was being controlled. From that day forward, Liam changed. He didn't become robotic, but precise. No more visible frustration, no more reacting in real time. He started sitting back in meetings, still alert, still present, but unreadable. People started adjusting their tone around him. They measured their words more carefully, and the ones who used to press his buttons couldn't find them anymore. This is emotional scarcity. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must never be ruled by love or hatred, not because emotions are weak, but because emotions are readable. And the moment someone can read you, they can reach you. They don't need to overpower you. They just need to tilt your mood. Control the flame, and you control the battlefield. Soon you'll see why saying less doesn't just protect you, it pulls people closer. He used to think honesty built trust, but every visible reaction was a thread someone could pull. A sigh became doubt, a frown became permission. His emotions weren't connecting, they were conceding. When he finally held back, they leaned in harder. Not to hear more, but to figure out what they weren't being told. People crave emotional clarity, and when you take it away, they don't walk away, they chase. Because your calm becomes rare, your silence becomes loud, and your mystery becomes magnetic. Try this today. Next time someone tries to provoke you, don't react. Keep your voice level. Hold their gaze, but let the space between words stretch longer than usual. That pause? That's the moment they start wondering what you're really thinking, and in that uncertainty is where control is born. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to hear this right now. It could change their life. But if you want to turn that control into obsession, if you want to make your emotional restraint feel like a drug, they need to crave and never fully receive. That's what comes next. Next up, the strategic shock, where desire grows not from what you give, but from what you refuse to fill. You don't want to miss this, because once you master this move, people won't just remember you, they'll ache for you. Episode 6. The strategic shock. People don't get obsessed with what's constant, they get obsessed with what they can't quite predict, but can't stop watching. Derek was the reliable one. Always responded within minutes, always liked every post, always showed up, stayed late, remembered birthdays, and checked in after arguments. He thought consistency was power. Until the day he wasn't needed. A colleague got promoted over him, someone louder, more erratic, less available. Derek's voice had become a wallpaper. People smiled when he spoke, but no one remembered what he said. The pattern he built, brick by brick, had become his own cage. Even in his silence, people could fill in what he'd say. That's when it hit him. He wasn't respected, he was decoded. Predictable, safe. And that safety cost him power. One night, he didn't reply. The next morning, someone texted, "Are you okay?" That was the first time in years someone noticed his absence. Not his effort, not his presence, his absence. And it changed everything. Power isn't built on presence, it's built on disruption. Rhythm creates safety. but controlled chaos creates focus. In a world where attention is the new currency, mystery isn't a gift, it's a weapon. In 30 seconds, I'll show you how silence becomes a signal and scarcity becomes leverage. He thought showing up was strength, but repetition diluted his presence. Each consistent reply, each timely check-in became routine. He gave people certainty and lost their curiosity. Now they scroll past his name, not out of malice, but because they already know what's coming. What about your rhythm? Do people anticipate it or feel it? Change your rhythm. Reply later. Miss one event. Let the silence sting just enough to trigger reflection. If you want to become stronger, wiser, and untouchable, hit subscribe and join this growing movement. But if you want to use unpredictability, not as avoidance, but as strategy, what comes next reveals the real architecture of power. Soon you'll notice they're not just reacting to you, they're recalibrating around you. Because what's coming next isn't just the end of this video, it's the final convergence of all 6 laws. Miss it, and you'll keep watching power, but never holding it. This wasn't just a lesson in tactics, it was a blueprint for becoming unforgettable. Power doesn't come from presence, it comes from precision. The less they know, the more they feel. The less you give, the more they chase. You've seen how scarcity builds tension, how silence protects power, and how unpredictability turns attention into obsession. These aren't theories, they're weapons. And when used right, they shift how the world responds to you. Because when you stop performing and start positioning, people don't just notice you, they orbit you. Not out of loyalty, but gravity. Now imagine walking through life, unreadable, unshakable. Your presence felt even in absence. That's the transformation this channel was built for. Comment. They'll chase what they can't predict. And subscribe, because the next video won't just inform you, it'll rewire how you move through power.